What's up? Red Feather Free, the Dragon Shaman. I wanted to talk to you today about a very interesting dream I had last night, a very vivid dream. And when I woke up, I began following some leads from this dream, because anytime I have specific names of places and things like that and vivid imagery, I always have to follow it, because it's never not led me to some really interesting and deep discovery about something. You know, last time was about Arcturians, for instance, which led me to the discovery of the star Arcturus actually being on a close approach right now and being related to the age of Aquarius, and the golden waters, or the golden photons, being emitted from that, the living water being emitted from that star that are bombarding us right now and leading to the changes in our DNA and the evolution of humanity, all from a dream. Okay, last night's dream, I was dropped off. I was with a friend, and somehow or another we had split up, and I got dropped off in the middle of the just absolute nowhere with nothing but a haversack of clothes on my back, and I was walking, and I walked up to this like big old house, and I went in, and it appeared to be like a church gathering. And they said, "Hey, what's going on? Who are you?" And I introduced myself. "I'm Red Feather. Nice to meet you." And they said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Well, I'm out on the road. God's told me to just go." And they said, "You're not worried about, not being able to eat or having a place to stay or anything like that?" And I said, "God opens all doors." And it just so happened that the man who was there was a pastor, and he basically like fell in love with my energy, and he started just talking to me, and we talked. He took us in for a couple of days, and he took me in for a day or two anyways. But long story short, I ended up recognizing this place, Frederick, Texas, or in my mind it came up as Fredericksburg for some reason, but the geographical location is what I was burned into my mind, and it was up in the border of Texas, in some like foothills or mountains kind of, and I remember there was a lot of wildlife, even bears and such. And I woke up this morning and I went to tell my roommate about this dream, and I was like, "Do you mind if I borrow your phone to just search and see if there's actually a place where this is that, is," because my mind has pulled things out of it before that are 100% real. And sure enough, I searched. I searched first off for Fredericksburg, Texas, and that's actually about, 2 hours or an hour and a half's drive due west of Austin. And I was like, well, that's not it. In my mind, it was up near the border. So I just scrolled on the map up near the border where my mind saw this location. And I zoomed in, and sure enough, there's a town right there, just on the other side of the border into Oklahoma, called Frederick, Oklahoma. And it's just past the Red River line. And it used to be part of Texas. So it actually was at one time Frederick, Texas. And I started to, just Wikipedia to see what I could find out about this town. It's called the friendliest city. And I said, that's exactly right. I never felt such hospitality. And I thought in my heart, that's one day where I'm going to settle. I've got to have a place there. But then I started reading, and there's apparently, it was famous because in 1904 and 1905, President Teddy Roosevelt traveled there to partake in a wolf hunt. And before you freak out, not that kind of wolf hunt. He actually went to meet this famous man named Jack Abernathy. And Jack Abernathy's wrote a book, and I'll get to that later, but Jack Abernathy was a barehanded wolf hunter. Yeah, that's right, a barehanded wolf hunter. See, Jack, when he was 15, was working as a cowpoke, or cowboy on a ranch, and a pair of his greyhounds had chased down a wolf, and Jack was out, and by the time him and his horse rode up on these two greyhounds that had this wolf turned and bayed, one of the greyhounds had already been disemboweled, and the wolf was chewing on the other. And Jack, this 15-year-old little scrawny boy of a man, man of a boy, whatever you want to call him, he jumped off without hesitating, and he just went after the wolf, and said he didn't have any thought in his head just to get that wolf off of his dog, and he was hoping the wolf would run away. But he fought this wolf, and he ended up shoving his right hand in the wolf's mouth, or the wolf bit his right hand actually, and he recognized that as long as he had that wolf's lower jaw, that the wolf couldn't actually bite down on it. So he tried to keep hold of it as good as he and as strong as he could. And then he pinned down the wolf until finally the wolf just quit fighting. It was kicking and scratching, and I mean, this was a 125-pound wolf, and it was almost every bit as big as Jack was at the time. Eventually, Jack's brother ended up riding up, and he said, "Well, what do you got there?" And Jack, he had made a mistake the first time that he got the wolf's jaw subdued because he wasn't certain what was going on. He tried to pull back, and when he pulled back, the wolf bit down real hard, and it punctured an artery in his wrist, and he was actually spurting blood real bad. But he took and wrapped a cross hitch around the wolf's snout because he thought, for some reason, I'm going to take this wolf back alive. And he wrapped the wolf's jaw shut, and they took this wolf with them back to the ranch. And he managed to survive. He's spurting blood the whole time. Get this though, he couldn't shove the artery back inside his arm or in his wrist, so he pulls it out, cuts off the torn part, and ties it off. I can't even fathom that. That's a bad mamma jamma right there, okay? Long story short though, Jack ends up going through different things, different phases in his life. He ends up becoming, I believe, a musician and a piano salesman for a while before he gets back into wolf hunting, you know. He does this, becomes quite famous for his barehanded wolf hunting, and he goes around capturing wolves for people, and he takes them alive and sells them to circuses or zoos or what have you for $50 each. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, I think we wouldn't have any wolves left in the wild today, because I believe a lot of the wolves were reintroduced from captive populations. So say what you will, but I believe he's responsible for saving the wolf in the wild. The fame of his exploits reached the Rough Rider himself, Theodore Roosevelt. And Roosevelt just couldn't pass up such an incredible opportunity to see something like this. So he went on a wolf hunt with Jack Abernathy. And he saw how Jack did this, and Teddy wanted to try it himself, but the Secret Service and they convinced him that it was probably best that he didn't try it. So he didn't try to barehand the wolf himself. But Jack, man, he's just a brave and a ballsy ass man. Ended up, this relationship between him and Theodore became quite a fruitful one for him, because later on, when Theodore got back to Washington, he sent him a letter and he said, "You tell me any position you want in the cabinet and it's yours." And he said, "I want to be the Marshal for the Oklahoma Territory." "It's done," said Theodore Roosevelt. So from that moment on, Jack Abernathy was the Marshal of the Oklahoma Territory. Now, as I was reading this story, I was just emotionally just feeling this flood of my memories coming back to me, because I feel like I'm connected in the Ka to Jack Abernathy, but not just Jack Abernathy, but the ancient Norse god Tyr. And if you haven't heard of Tyr, he was the founder, or the king. Tyranny comes from king. He was the king of the Norse gods before Odin. And he was said to have calmed the chaos wolf, who was a child of Loki, named Fenrir. And Fenrir was so wild, and it was chained to the root of Yggdrasil, that it threatened to destroy the whole universe, because no one was brave enough to go near the wolf to appease it, except for Tyr. Now Tyr is depicted as missing his right hand in mythology. And the mythology says that he went to feed Fenrir. I say no. I say he fought Fenrir, he subdued Fenrir, and he lost his right hand because Fenrir bit it off, you know. But he, in order to win the battle, Tyr willingly sacrificed that right hand. He knew that was the only way he's going to be able to subdue the wolf, and then thus domesticate it. And that's how we got domestic dogs to this day, I believe. The first man, the first brave man, fearless man, who was trying to save, you know, probably one of their animals, one of their herd animals or something, came up on a caribou that was being eaten by wolves, and he just instantly charged and tried to fight it off without even thinking, just pure blind bravery. And in that he was able to subdue this wild chaos beast, the wolf, and bring it back to camp and eventually settle it and calm it. And now today we have dogs, our friends. Just a thought, a possibility, pulled from the connections of the Akashic records and the dream state and the spirit world from the shaman Red Feather Free. Thank you for listening. And I highly implore you to pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to the specific things that your dreams tell you. Names, places, faces, all these things. It's not just conjured up stuff. All these images of your dreams, and all of it comes from experiences or events that could happen or have happened, if not in this universe, in a parallel universe, I believe. But I firmly believe that when we dream, we can access our Akashic records. We go into the deep part of our subconscious, or our DNA becomes passive, and our RNA can become like unlocked, release things out of it, like this story. Frederick, Texas, and Jack Abernathy, and Theodore Roosevelt, and the Norse god Tyr. All just very interesting connections. You know, I don't really mind if you call me crazy. It is what it is, but crazy smart. Peace.